Welcome to the Enjoy a Cancer-Free Life podcast with Dr. Ted Koren, best-selling author of Cancer is Natural, So is the Cure. More than care for patients, Dr. Koren transforms lives. He teaches people an all-natural way to heal from and address the causes of cancer using the tools we all have within ourselves. On the podcast, Dr. Koren interviews other thought leaders in natural healing who share insights and information to help you live longer and better.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Ted Koren, author of Cancer is Natural, So is the Cure. And I'm with us today is a special guest, Dr. Patrick Porter, who works in the field of, he's a neuroscientist working in the field of brainwave entrainment. Did I say that right?
Yep, you did. That's
okay,
good.
Great. And Dr. Porter, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you here. I have known you for many years. We've run into each other at seminars and events. And thank you. Thank you so much for spending time in your busy schedule to chat with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are and your background and what got you interested in this fascinating subject?
Okay. Well, my background is I have a degree in psychology, and I focus primarily on helping people to improve their brainwave health through a device called BrainTap. And then I've been doing this since 1980s. Even before that, my dad was a seminar leader in something called the Silva method, where you learned by using GSR machines to relax your brain and get into alpha. And then we decided we wanted to start researching theta, which is, of course, the healing state. For those, we might talk a little bit about that later, about how when you get into the parasympathetic system, how the body heals. So we were looking for ways to help people do that without conscious effort. Because when somebody's in a great deal of pain, they're not able to do the biofeedback methods. Now, this is before neurofeedback. Now we do a lot with neurofeedback, but before that we did things with that. So we've been researching that. I was with a company called Light and Sound Research. I had a franchise company. And then in 2006, I went out, was retired for about 5 years and found out that money doesn't last as long as you think it would. So I went back to work and with the chiropractic industry. Actually, Carl Parker was still alive at the time, and he asked me to help him to get chiropractors doing more with what we called a chiro spa at that time, which means there's a lot of professionals out there, especially in the wellness space, that are limiting what they can do because they feel like they have a niche business. Like a chiropractor, for instance, thinks they just adjust backs or something. You know, when that's not the case. There, a lot of times these natural medicine practitioners are the primary care physician for their patients. They see their chiropractor maybe once, twice, even up to 2 or 3 times a week. They might see their medical doctor once a year for their annual checkup. So we're just trying to, my goal is to, my mission actually is to better 1 billion brains. And we need people like you, Ted, and the community to help, because obviously I can only touch so many people. And your topic is timely. I mean, people need to know when you have something that most people are told, hey, when you get a diagnosis, you're dead. You know, basically you have to go their way or the highway. So I think it's always great to give options. So that's where I'm at.
Right. This is all about options and people understanding the bigger picture. And one of the main factors in all diseases, really, we talk about cancer and chronic illness, and it runs the gamut and everything, is stress. Mm-hmm. And that is especially what you're dealing with. How does your instrument, how would you say, release stress? Mollify stress, diminish stress? What would be the term?
Well, stress is still there, but you don't process it the same way. Our body needs a way to ground that stress. Think of stress as energy in the system, and our body is like a capacitor in an electric circuit. It holds a charge, and then that stress has to discharge. Unfortunately, people discharge their stress in a lot of negative ways, and like through sugar, alcohol, drugs, whatever. And we want them to do it in a healthy way. So what we're going to do is we're going to help them ground that stress by changing their brain. We only experience really clinical stress as long as there's nothing organically wrong with the person's brain. It's going to only happen in the beta brainwave, which is where we're talking right now. When you go to sleep or you're doing something creative, or you should be able to put that aside and enjoy your life. But what's happening now is we're getting a bleed over. That stress is bleeding over into people's sleep. It's bleeding over into their relationships. It's bleeding over into their health. You know, and if even the National Institute of Health says that 97% of all stress is exacerbated I mean, all illness is exacerbated by stress. So when you think about it, the least we can do is get rid of the stress so our body can do what it does best, heal.
Doesn't stress have an effect on the immune system?
Oh yeah, there's actually something called psychoimmunology. Back in the 70s in psychology, they started coining terms, of course. So what they found out was that what that means is that your emotional state actually affects your immune system. So if you're
I
feeling,
remember the term, if I could just
yeah,
rip you a moment.
yeah.
There were many terms. One was psychoneuroimmunology, PNI.
Mhm.
Another one was psychobiology, I believe.
Mhm.
And there were some pretty famous people who worked in that field,
Mhm.
affecting all kinds of diseases and conditions by changing the way the nervous system reacts. Okay, go ahead. Sorry to
Right.
interrupt.
Well, what I was going to say is that we know that the brain, the most powerful pharmacy on earth, if you think a certain way, your body is going to create a certain neurological condition, which then in turns creates a chemical condition. And of course, it shows up in the body as whatever. Stress can show up in many forms, from pain in the body to disease in the body. So we want to make sure that the body's it needs to have a way to get rid of that stress, offload that stress. If you don't ever offload the stress, we call it sympathetic survivor syndrome. So people basically wake up stressed, they go to sleep stressed, their body is never out of that chronic condition. Low-level chronic stress is really bad. I mean, we used to not experience it like we are today.
How many people would you say have it?
Well, pretty close to 100% of the people out there have some form of this, especially right now. I mean, when if certain things,
The flu hysteria going
yes,
on.
yes. When the one way you can really dampen your immune system is turn on the news. Because I tell people, if you're too happy, you're too joyful, you have too much, you're thinking too optimistically, just turn on the news. They're going to dampen your spirit instantly. They're going to tell you,
if it bleeds, it leads.
yes, yes, there it is.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually met a man in Tucson when I was doing a tour of my book. This was in the 90s, but they started an all positive network in Tucson, Arizona. And they did this because a bus went over the cliff, but the bus driver, the woman, saved the lives of all the children. It didn't make the news.
No.
No, it didn't make the news. So they started this whole news thing based around that because, hey, there's a lot of positive news out there. There's something wonderful going on in every hometown in America right now. Probably thousands of things in every hometown, but we don't know about it because, like you said, if it bleeds, it leads. And if good news doesn't sell, bad news sells, unfortunately. But what it does to our immune system is catastrophic, because now our immune system, there's a part of our brain that's called the reticular activating system. And it's always looking over our environment saying, wow, is this a safe place for me? Am I okay here? Is it all right for me to, express myself? But what's happening now, of course, is there's a lot of fear out there. We can't even talk to our families, our friends. We can't go visit them. We can't shake their hands. We can't.
Just for those that don't know it, this is being filmed during the lockdown from the flu hysteria that's going on.
Yeah, but it happens every winter, right? I mean, it's getting worse and worse. It's like we're being set up for something, which we don't need to get into here. But it's like there's something weird going on here, because but every time they now know, one of the things, just for the listeners, if you have an allergy, they know now statistically that they can sell more allergy medicine, trigger your allergy response just by running advertising.
Advertising?
Yes.
Just advertising freaks people out enough.
Yeah. And they show the pictures of these microscopic spores, but of course on the news, they're showing them big giant bubbles that are attacking people. And so they know that they can trigger that psychoimmunology, where they're going to trigger through your psyche, through your brain. And the thing is that your brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So if they can put it in the right place in your brain, then they create a reaction in your body. And then you forget about that they triggered it. If you go to the weather station on your app, on your phone or anything like that, it's going to tell you what the pollen count is right now. What did we do before that? Well, we didn't have so much. Every kid almost has a peanut allergy now. What's going on? I mean, there's all this, there's all this reaction because we live in a fear-based society, and we need a way to get rid of that fear so that we can get back to our true selves, who we are.
I remember studying psychoneuroimmunology, as you said, in the 70s. And in the 80s also, it became big. There's hundreds and hundreds of papers on the subject. And they talked about the intimate relationship between our mind and our nervous system and our immune system and our endocrine system, that they all work together in many complex ways. And now they're finding, I think it's been called, Deepak Chopra referred to the white blood cells as the circulating immune system or the circulating nervous system.
Yes.
That you can't, you know, we separate these systems for convenience sake, but they're one system, and affecting one can affect everything.
Right. It's kind of a crude analogy is when you go to a swimming pool and says, this is the peeing side of the pool. This isn't, you're not, it's going to go everywhere. You know, the body, whatever you put into the body, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional, that's going to have an interaction or a reaction. Of course, we want people to be interactive, not reactive, but if they're not trained, if they don't know any better, then we become naturally reactive, and that reactive state causes the fear, the uncertainty, and doubt, which in the business they call it FUD. You know, a lot of people running around with FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So and that's the worst thing that can happen to a person.
And marketing people take advantage of that tremendously.
Oh yeah. There's a saying in marketing, like you said, with the it's if they're crying, they're buying. So they're going to try to get people.
I never heard that.
They're going to get people crying because they're hurting.
Perfect.
Yeah, they say where there's pain, there's profit too, unfortunately, in too many cases. And what they don't know, the average person out there doesn't know, is that all medicine is reactionary. Nobody dies because they have a shortage of medicine in their system. The body has to respond to that. You know, like they go, when your body reacts to that medicine, if it works, and they go, hey, this medicine's working for you, Ted, you should continue to take it the rest of your life. It doesn't know that your body literally changes every 72 hours. You get a new nervous system, really. It's resetting all the time. So it's not like, and then every 2 years, of course, you get a whole new body, but there's certain parts of your body that change very quickly. And your nervous system pattern, it's going to try to regulate itself every 72 hours. It's going to try to find your balance because the brain loves patterns.
So depending on how much stress is coming in, your body will change, and that can happen within a very short period of time.
Right. Yeah, you can actually measure in the blood serum, you know, these stress responses just by watching a movie. That's why I don't watch scary movies, you know, because I know what it does to the nervous system. It literally responds, and then our body becomes adaptive in nature. So it starts thinking for us. That's our subconscious. When like people like Bruce Lipton talk about our conscious mind is 5%. Our unconscious runs the rest of the show, which is 95%, or he calls it the subconscious. I call it the other than conscious because it's very conscious. Your heart knows exactly what it's doing. Your lungs do. Your innate intelligence knows exactly what it's doing. But if we get in the way, stress is one of the biggest disruptors because it tells the brain, wait, there's an emergency going on. And when everything becomes an emergency, the body never resets. Right now, everything is an emergency. You know, you're
always on guard in a sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I remember this book, I don't know if you've ever seen it, from the 90s, Spontaneous Remission.
Oh, yeah.
And it came from the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and it discusses over 1,000 conditions, many of them horrible cases of terminal cancer and chronic illnesses of all kinds, even parasitic infections and all kinds of bacterial infections that suddenly disappeared, went into remission when the person often had an emotional reset, when they had an emotional catharsis, or actually changed their, I guess you'd say, their brainwaves.
Yeah. What they say, even in the big book of AA, people need a psychic change. And what they meant by that was they need a change of the mind. So once they know, there has been studies done on people with multiple personality disorders. One personality, they have, problems with sugar and they have diabetes. The other personality, they don't. They have, and I'm sure that they've had studies done with almost every disease known to man, because spontaneous remission happens more than people think. In the hospitals, when you talk to medical doctors that will really share with you, they'll tell you they don't know how this person healed. It had nothing to do with what they did. In fact, one of the things I find is interesting is the number 2 cause of death in America is medical malfeasance. So it's not even a disease. It's a disease of thinking. And it probably has to do with their fatigue and stress.
You know, in America, they don't talk much about that, but in the European press, England, I know for sure, they write about that quite often. Maybe because they don't advertise so much in European newspapers.
Yeah.
So they're suddenly, oh, let's talk about how the MD screwed up this time. But in America, you don't see that. Excuse me. I'd like to talk about chronic illness and cancer and stress. How would you say, now, as I said in other books, spontaneous remission is just one of them, but there's so many books that have dealt with people healing from horrible diseases when their emotional state changes, when their brain waves change. Have you had experience with your instrument? And I don't know if you, we'd like to also give people the opportunity to take a look at what you sell. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they can go to gobraintap.com and it's free. They can try it, no credit card necessary. It's 30-day free program, and they can learn about it. And they'll get access to, we have 2 different cancer programs. So we've been doing a lot over the years. We have to be very careful, of course, talk about, quote, curing. We talk about supporting them. We have one that when they work with their medical doctors, because we have so many medical doctors using BrainTap, that we have one called Coping with Cancer, and that's if they're working with the medical system. Then we have one that's called Say No to Cancer, which is all natural. If the person, because we have so many of our practitioners are 100% natural physicians. They don't.
Oh, sure. I'd like to discuss with you, I don't know how often you make your BrainTap series, something that looks at cancer as something the body needs. There's more and more research showing, and my book deals with it, that the cancer is a defense mechanism. It's how the brain responds to toxins and to toxicity and poisons, and it really sequesters and stores them until it can release them.
Right. Well, I think you're right on. I mean, there's been so much research. Everybody has circulating cancer cells. It's just those white marker cells find them and take care of them before they get out of control. It's a delicate balance in the system. So, and what we talk about is that the body's used to dealing with these things. But if you're under stress, if everything's a stressor, your immune system doesn't know what to attack and what not to attack. So a lot of times it starts to attack yourself, and that's when it attacks the immune system. And that's what you don't want to do. I tell people it's kind of like the Navy SEALs. If you give them someone to fight, they're really great. But if you put them in a bar, give them enough alcohol, they're probably going to fight each other. You know, that's kind of the way. that's kind of the way the immune system works. We need to, when it's not on high alert, we should let it stay at rest. You know, but if we turn on the news or we look at the pollen counts, and we're always, if you anticipate bad news, your brain will not only predict it, it will create it. You know,
I recommend the shotgun approach. If you know a lot of things that benefit a person, and each one individually may have incredible healing stories just by itself, why not combine them?
Yes, exactly.
So I see that your work, releasing stress, mollifying stress, dealing with stress, is very valuable for anyone with a chronic illness, and especially cancer. That if a person has a health problem of any kind, relaxing, getting into a better brainwave pattern, are you really training the brain, training the person for not just a few minutes that they're with you, but their whole lives?
Yeah, we have 2 studies where we showed over time that we had changed the brainwaves for a distance. One is for autism kids. We were able to increase alpha by 23%, and at 6-month mark, it still was there.
Can you explain alpha to people?
Yeah, alpha is the brainwave state that has to do with speech and also processing memories. It's also your creative states, you know, where you do creative things. Also, healing comes from there. There's a state called hypernesia. They also call it the Mozart effect, because you can play music and when you're learning and your brain actually gets smarter. That's alpha doing that. But with autistic kids, they don't have alpha. When we do a brain map, and for whatever reason, something happened to them, you know, whether it was some kind of toxin or something, their brain just didn't develop the alpha brainwave pattern. So once you teach it, and you can do that through light, sound, and vibration very easily.
And your instrument deals with all 3, light, sound, and vibration?
Yes.
And how long does it take to use it?
Well, for this one, it's 10 minutes a day. And the schools that use it now, they call it brain prep, because it gets the brain prep for learning. but it's a different, each brainwave frequency is a little bit different, but we need alpha. Every one of us does. If we don't have alpha, we can't get rid of stress. If somebody has a very little, that's why you'll see the kids stimming where they're throwing off the stress like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have all this electrical energy. Yeah, they need to get rid of that energy. Now they can ground it. They've had a lot of research with grounding that grounds that energy into the earth, like walking outside barefoot or things like that, or getting out in sunlight. Those are all really good things. But kids that don't know, like high functioning autistic kids, typically they'll have between 5 and 10% alpha, but they have a very gifted beta brain, which is, they become like Spock. They just know things like Asperger's or something like that.
So just 10 minutes a day using BrainTap can make a difference. Do you recommend people sometimes using more than 10 minutes a day?
Yeah, if an adult is stressed, then we recommend it first 3 times a day. We have morning sessions. We call it digital coffee, which, because our brain, when we wake up, there's a brainwave as we get better looking and more intelligent with age. What happens is it kind of it atrophies. It's the SMR brainwave. That's sensory motor rhythm. It has to do with the vestibular system or balance.
Yes.
So for those out there that are a little bit older and you go, I used to have really good balance. What happened? You think it's an exercise thing, but more than anything else, it's your vestibular system off. That's why chiropractic works, and why when they do their adjustment and then they do BrainTap, we get great improvement when they use the SMR program. But we also have one over time. We did a research study with women 55 to 65. This was with a chiropractor in Florida, Dr. Kelly Miller. He wrote the book Saving Your Brain, which is a really good book. And it has a chapter about BrainTap, so I'm really sweet on it. But what he showed was we were the therapy. He measured the brain, and we can measure neuron connections. So right now we don't know exactly, but what they do is they do it by voltage. So your brain is an engine, right? And it's a neurological engine. So it's firing off these neurons all the time. We did a study where we took 55 to 65-year-old women, 6 weeks doing BrainTap. They had to do it at least once a day. They could do it up to 3 times a day. And at the end of the study, these were all diagnosed through their medical doctor, dementia, no problem. Well, at the end of 6 weeks, nobody was on the dementia scale anymore, using the scale by Cambridge Sciences. And they increased their neurological functioning by 64%, which your nervous system, 70% of it exists in your brain, not in your body. So when you improve the nervous system in the brain, obviously that's going to improve the nervous system in the body, and vice versa. So that's what we showed. And it lasted.
A lot of people go to doctors, chiropractors, medical doctors, and have BrainTap sessions. They sit for 10 minutes, probably, however often they can go to the doctor. Yeah. But do you have like a family model that can be used? People can purchase?
Oh yeah, they can. The doctors, even online, you can buy the headset. It's $647, and we have different plans depending upon what you want to listen to. They're as low as $10 a month, or less than that if they wanted to use them. If they buy the headset, they get free access to certain sessions every month to keep the equipment working, and their whole family can use it. That's a neat thing when we work with, when somebody has stress in the family, whether it be cancer, autism, whatever the Lyme's disease, the family is stressed out too. In fact, we found that the caregiver has PTSD. Because what are they doing? Every morning they got to get up. There's another trial. There's another tribulation. So we've been actually seeing a big uptick in the caretakers using the equipment, as well as the person who's going through the disease. Yeah,
I found in my own practice, I take care of autistic kids. Of course, now cancer is becoming more of an issue that I consult with and help people. But when in my experience, when you have an autistic child, you should take care of the whole family. But you're right, the whole family has post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
Just leave a child alone. And of course, we talk about it with caregivers, people with Alzheimer's, and people, of course, with cancer and any chronic illness. One of the great things about your work is it can be used by anyone in any part of the spectrum. They can be in great health and it improves their health, or they can be in sort of crappy health and it improves them, because there's nothing better than releasing stress on the system.
Right. We've also, one of the things, when you're talking about that, it reminds me, we just started a program with Jake Pates. It's called Chasing Greatness, but he's an Olympic snowboarder. And we got involved with him because of his concussions. you know, and when you think about concussions and people think, oh, the brain takes a long time to heal or whatever, but he started the Healthy, Happy Brain Foundation because he uses something called the WAVI to measure the brain, and then he uses BrainTap to help as a solution for athletes. Because, you know, the athletes, your brain can rebuild itself at any age. It needs nutrition, you know, it needs the right oxygen, nutrition, and rest. And I think that people aren't getting the quality rest that they need because they have the discomforts that are going on.
Has any work been done on brain tap and detoxification? You know, I imagine when you're in a certain state, your body opens up and releases poisons better.
Yeah. Well, most people don't know that the only time your brain releases toxins physiologically is during level 4 sleep.
Wasn't there a recent study about that? The brain has, what did they call it? Its own lymphatic system?
Yeah, that's in 2016 in American Scientific. They actually came out with an article. If somebody wants to look it up on the internet, they can read it. They talked about the 4 stages of sleep, and that most people are losing out on that 4th level because they're not getting the deep sleep. And you think about at the hospitals when somebody's really sick, they're waking them up every 2 hours. That's terrible for the immune system and for deep sleep. But if you woke up in the middle of the night and you weren't able to move, they call sleep paralysis. You woke up in the middle of one of these cleaning cycles, and they should happen 5 to 7 times at night or more. The more they happen, the better. You know, and most people think of sleep, they go, well, I need to be in bed for 8 hours. No, you need 1 hour of deep sleep minimum and 2.5 hours of REM sleep minimum. If you get more than that, that's a bonus. But most people don't get that in 8 hours because they're not getting the deep sleep they need.
So how does BrainTap help sleep?
Well, the main thing is that your brain knows what to do. So through the algorithm, we guide you from the wide awake state into deep sleep, and we leave you there. We have actually sleeping sessions for the evening that the people put on, and the algorithm takes you in. If you think about before lights that we have today, the average person slept 12 hours a day. You know, the old expression, burning a candle at both ends, was because it was expensive. You know, not just that you were staying awake, you know, so now we can keep our lights on and keep our televisions going 24/7 and people aren't getting the sleep. The average person now sleeps less than 7 hours a night. That's a big change, you know, and it's not, again, it's not about the length of time, but they're not getting the right sleep because they're bright lights all the way up until they go to sleep.
So that stimulates their nervous system?
Oh yeah, even low lux light, like even your bed lamp, before, when you're sleeping beside your bed and you're reading, that bed light lamp for about 20% of the people is too much light for them to go to sleep. Their brain it needs at least an hour, you know, so we recommend people turn down the lights in their home as night gets later, and they let their eyes adjust to bring in more light. And then of course, blue-eyed people are going to bring in more light than brown-eyed people. So they even have to be more careful because blue-eyed people, yeah, you know, their bodies are designed to live in the north where there's not as much light, and they're having to deal with seasonal affective disorder. Like I have dark eyes, so, you know, basically I don't even wear sunglasses hardly when I'm outside, only when I'm on my boat or something. But most of the time I don't need sunglasses because I need more light.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can go out and putting on sunglasses for me is a big deal. I just never use them. I don't use them as much as possible. So my takeaway from this, because we're running low, sort of out of time right now, although this is absolutely fascinating. I could talk to you for hours. I'd like everybody to check out BrainTap, no matter what disease you have or don't have. This is incredibly beneficial for everyone. Can you give us the website again, please? And we'll include it with our materials.
Yeah, if you go to gobraintap.com, you can download the free app. You also get a free copy of my book, Thrive in Overdrive. So you can learn a lot more about stress. That's all about how we handle stress and health right now. In this age, we are bombarded with things taking up our time and attention. So let's get control of that and get our health back.
Well, you know, I don't see the downside. Your nervous system relaxes, your immune system gets better, your endocrine system improves, your entire body is better, you sleep better, and you detox better. Did I miss much?
No, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no downside to this incredible product that you have. I recommend everybody use it, and especially now, I'm glad you mentioned autism. Because do they actually sit with the
Oh yeah, the parents. Dr. Joquita Handy out of Orange County, California did most of our research. And at first the parents were like, no way my kid's going to do that. They're going to throw it across the room. And some will, you've got to sit there with them a little bit at first just to get them comfortable. But what we found out, and you pointed it out really, when we gave it to the parents first and the parents started doing it, and then the children saw it, they took to it like a duck takes to water. But as long as if the parent was just giving it to them, we felt like the kids thought it was a punishment. But as soon as it became something that the parents were doing and the whole family was doing, they did it and they got really good results. But
So they bring it home.
Yeah, most kids will just pass out, and then they'll wake up at 10 minutes and they'll be a totally different person because all that extra energy has been grounded.
I like to use the word healing sleep.
Yep.
Because you really are helping them tap into a deeper healing quality that they have.
Yes. And everybody can heal their brain and their body. I'm a firm believer that we could, if we didn't have to worry about certain listening ears, we could talk about, we've had such incredible healings out there with different people. And I think your work's going to just shed the light and give people hope and give them a chance to survive and thrive rather than, when you go to the medical model, unfortunately, too many times it's like a death sentence right from the very beginning. And if you heal, it's almost like you won the lottery. Instead of, we heal all the time anyway. We should win the lottery every morning. Our body knows how to do it.
Oh, yes. Spontaneous remission is hundreds of times more common than people realize. In one study, they found that women between the age of 40 and 50, 1% are diagnosed with breast cancer in their doctor's office. But when they've been in car accidents and they died in accidents and had autopsies, they found breast cancer in 39%, same age group, which signifies that cancer comes and goes throughout one's life. And our goal is just to have it going.
Yes, perfect.
Well, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to recommend your products to absolutely everyone. It's a real blessing. And thank you for all the hard work you've done over the years.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ted. I appreciate being there and helping to support and getting the word out about your book to our group.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level, but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.